Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my neighbor despises me for having frequent barbecues and calls the fire department claiming that I am about to basically burn down the neighborhood. I'm just having a barbecue and she then freaks out and breaks all boundaries. Here is what happened. The title story goes like this. I have a story to tell about my horrible neighbor that I'm gonna refer to as Karen. It's kind of a two-part story, so buckle in for the ride. Now, Karen lives next door to me and is the head of the HOA in the neighborhood. To her, that means she makes the rules and does anything she wants despite them not being actual rules. For the HOA here to make a rule, there's a big process and it is not just up to her. She has made it kind of an unofficial rule that nobody is allowed to eat meat in public, aka outside. This rule is very stupid and would never pass for an actual rule even in an HOA. She also decided that in her mind barbecue means meat, those are also banned. So even if you wanted to have a barbecue outside to make some vegan burgers or veggies, she would get on your rear. For most neighbors this would be an argument, but for me it's more since Karen and I already have problems with each other. This stems back to another rule she attempted to make, which was the neighborhood being adults only. When I gave birth a couple of years ago, she was angry and wanted to start a fight about everything. The baby crying late at night, her claiming she could smell the baby diapers we threw out, and even that we were spreading horrible germs since the baby seems to be magnets for germs and getting sick. Now, I'm not trying to deny that my baby didn't cry or poop or get sick, but I was gonna fight back every single time she tried to cause problems about my baby pretty much just existing. At the same time, as seemingly hating kids, she was also giving me unwanted advice about using all organic and vegan products for my baby. She was telling me not to vaccinate her and instead use crystals and essential oils. She said that when her kids were babies, those things were around, she would have done that and it would have been so much better. I never met her kids, but she's on the older side, so I would guess they moved away from her as soon as they possibly could. Anyway, back to her hatred of barbecues. We were having a little bit of a get-together with some friends, and since it was nice out, we decided to grill. My mom was watching our son, so we were free to eat, drink and have some fun. Shout out, by the way, to all the grandparents that babysit out there, because you are the heroes that we all need. I did not even hear a peep from Karen, so it was really turning out to be a great day. Then we heard the fire truck coming down the street and parking right in front of our house. At first I did not put two and two together and assumed one of the neighbors had some kind of problem. Then they started going into my backyard and enter Karen into the scene. "Karen, right in there, there's the smoke, it's been going on for hours and it's going to spread to my house. Please hurry up. Firefighter, step back ma'am." They look and can clearly see that the smoke is coming from the barbecue, which has some burgers and chickens cooking on it. I am beyond confused and a little bit embarrassed at our friends witnessing the crazy that is Karen. Me, is there a problem? Firefighter, we got a call about smoke and a fire going on at this address. Is everything here under control? Me, absolutely. We were just having a nice little barbecue with our friends. Somebody is always keeping an eye on the grill and there doesn't seem to be any excessive smoke to me. Karen, they are not allowed to make smoke out here. It's dangerous and can destroy the entire neighborhood. Tell them to turn it off right now. Firefighter, ma'am, they are allowed to have a barbecue as long as nothing is dangerous. They are doing everything right, so we don't really know why we were called. Did you think the actual house was on fire? Karen, of course not. I saw the smoke coming out of their barbecue, so I called you to put it out. They are causing a danger to everybody and shoving meat in my face on top of that. Firefighter, do you know it is illegal to call emergency services knowing there is not an emergency? There could be an actual fire we are not taking care of because of this. Karen, this is an emergency. The firefighters leave and Karen is furious that she didn't get her way. We thanked them and attempted to get back to our party. Karen was not gonna just stop without causing more of a scene though, and even after they left she decided to turn her frustration onto me and my husband for just, I guess, existing. Karen said, "You should be ashamed of yourself promoting this kind of lifestyle when you have a child. I know people in CPS and I can have your kid taken away from you for doing this kind of thing. Alcohol and meat will end up killing you all. Me, don't you dare threaten my family ever. My child is healthy and safe. While it's not any of your business, she's not here, so yes, I'm gonna enjoy a beer because I can. Get the hell out of my backyard and learn to mind your own business." Karen, you have not heard the last of this. You heathens are gonna end up out of my neighborhood one way or another. I don't know if I was more shocked at her calling it her neighborhood or her calling us heathens because of beer and barbecue. She ended up sending a made-up HOA citation which we ignored and nothing seemed to come out of it. Things from here though just seem to get worse between the two of us, and I guess you can consider this the end of part 1 of the story. Part 2 brings us a month into the future when we are hosting yet another barbecue. We were tentative to do so after the last one and Karen calling the fire department on us. It was my father-in-law's birthday though, and barbecue is his favorite thing in the world. He also just so happened to be one of the nicest people on the planet, so we were gonna make sure that he got anything he wanted for his birthday. This is a man that worked hard to support 5 kids and some nights even went hungry to make sure that the rest of his family had enough to be full. We went all out and got everything you can imagine to barbecue a huge meal for the family, as well as a wonderfully big cake. It was meant to be a fantastic day, but it turned into an absolute nightmare. Now, Karen was well aware that calling the fire department again was gonna lead to her getting in trouble and the barbecue continuing on. She needed a new plan, and honestly, as we got into it, maybe one of you can find even a small amount of logic in her plan. No matter how much I think about what could have been her plan of how things would turn out with her as the hero, I just cannot. As many parents know, even when just having a get-together in your yard, somebody needs to have their focus to be on the 2-year-old. They can get into trouble no matter where they are, and she was getting attention from everybody. Nobody else in the family really had young kids, so he was the only baby, and that made her the center of focus when anybody came to talk to me. I didn't mind, of course, since she was extremely happy and thrived on attention that her family gave her. I came from a much smaller family, and her being surrounded by so much love from so many people makes me emotional. What I didn't know was, during the party, Karen had been watching over the fence for the perfect moment to strike. Either that or the timing of her seeing what happened was the biggest coincidence on the planet. Either way, what happened was the food was getting passed around, and my daughter is very food motivated and focused. If she sees everybody else getting a plate full of food, she's gonna want to know where hers is. She eats fairly bland, and we made sure to grill a piece of chicken for her without any sauce or too many seasonings. The whole family likes things crazy spicy. Also boneless, so I could just cut it up into pieces and give it to her easily. I was about to give her the first forkful of chicken when, like a roadrunner, Karen jumped over the fence and grabbed my daughter. It was too fast for me to react, but I sure as hell screamed as loud as I could to get the attention of everybody. I was up chasing after Karen, with most of the family running along with me. Karen had too much of a lead though and ended up getting into her car with my daughter and driving away. I was absolutely hysterical and could not even tell you at what point the police had gotten there. I was in full panic attack and barely breathing, just sobbing as hard as I could at the fact that Karen had literally just kidnapped my daughter. My husband was barely keeping it together, and it was just to try and keep me from completely falling apart. The only thing that was leaving everybody hopeful was that we knew the model and color of the car that Karen drives. Also, one of the family members was able to get the first couple of numbers of her license plate. I think even before the police had finished taking statements and sending cops out, some of the family got in their car to go on the search as well. None of them were afraid of Karen, and honestly, if we found her first, she should have been the one afraid. This family would kill for my daughter to get back in my arms safe. I could not even imagine how scared she must have been with a total stranger and not knowing where her mom and dad were. What followed next was 3 entire days of not sleeping and barely eating as I waited for any news about her. My husband and I would drive around the area for hours each day, hoping to spot the car, but we didn't find it. The police gave descriptions to all of the drugstores and supermarkets in the area that sell baby products. She was still going to need diapers or food, so we were hoping somebody would have spotted her. I was in a surreal state of stress and constant prayer for my daughter to come home to me. During the 3rd day of her being missing, we got a phone call from the police that they had a lead. Somebody had spotted a car matching her description pulling into a motel. It turns out she had been covering her car when it was parked to avoid it being spotted. I wanted to get in the car and speed over there as fast as I could, but the police told me to stay where I was because it could be dangerous. I really didn't want to listen, but if it meant I would get my little girl back, I was gonna do what they said. An hour later, an officer came to my house with my daughter in his arms. She reached right for me and I held her close and then cried. I think I cried harder than when she was taken from me. I kept looking her over and making sure that she was not hurt. She seemed clean and not injured, and police told me that an EMT looked her over and deemed her okay. I had to know what happened to Karen though, because if she was back to being next door, I don't know if I would be able to stay in my house that night. They told me that she was arrested on kidnapping charges and I would probably need to go to court to testify about when my daughter was kidnapped. While she waited for trial, Karen was gonna be kept in jail and they were gonna argue it was too dangerous to let her out on bail. I don't know if it worked or if she just didn't end up getting bail, but I didn't see her again until the court date. I also asked the police if I could file for a restraining order to make sure that Karen never got near my daughter again. Even if she was in jail and I never needed to use it, I would rather have it than not. In case she ended up being found not guilty or something, I wanted to make sure to have a backup plan. Fast forward to the day in court when I had to come in and testify about what happened. I explained about the party and that I was just about to feed my daughter when Karen came out of nowhere and grabbed her. Her side started asking me weird questions like what I was gonna feed her and things like that. I was told by the lawyers to just answer the questions and then after I left the court I could ask them about things. It turns out that I was being asked those questions because her main defense was that she kidnapped my daughter for her own protection. That we were supposedly harming her and she stopped her from eating something dangerous and deadly. That explained all the weird questions like what was on the chicken we gave her and if we added any chemicals to the grill or food before giving it to her. They were trying to flip it around. Now, I did not get to actually see Karen take the stand since I was only to go in for the day I gave my statements. From what I was told though, Karen started going on an absolute rant about how meat is evil and we were raising our child to be a savage. It didn't take much for a jury to realize that my daughter was not in danger and Karen was just crazy. Even her own lawyer trying to guide her with questions to make her look good ended badly. Things like her being a respected member of the community and being the head of the HOA were used to try and make her look good. It turned sour though once she started talking about banning meat and children from the neighborhood as part of her big plan. The thing about Karen is that they have no idea how to shut their mouth and let people like their own lawyer try to dig them out of a hole. They think they are in the right and everybody around them is gonna agree with them. With the amount of evidence stacked against her, she was easily found guilty of kidnapping and then sent to jail. For those that don't know, and honestly I hope never have to know, kidnapping is one of those crimes where you go to jail for a long time. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison and I wish I could have seen her face when she got that sentencing. I didn't sleep from the moment my daughter was taken until I found out that Karen was going to prison. Once I knew she was being locked away, I was finally able to relax and rest. I had moved my daughter's crib into our room even because I would wake up in a panic and unless I physically saw her, I could not calm down. Karen had broken a part of me that I might have to live with for the rest of my life due to grabbing my daughter right in front of me. It was hard for a while to even go out with her because I had this paranoia that somebody else was gonna take her. Thankfully, as time goes on, those feelings have lessened and things are getting back to normal. I cannot thank the police that got her back or my family that spent days just like I did searching enough. I know there is some debate on how old memories are, but I really hope that whatever happened with Karen in that motel, she does not remember. I know she must have been scared and I wish nothing more than for that to not form as a memory for her. I also hope that Karen rots in prison and the other prisoners find out what she did. I know some crimes are more respected than others, but I cannot imagine kidnapping a 2-year-old would be seen as good. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would definitely agree with OP here. I only wish this Karen in the story the worst. What a terrible human being. I hope she will never be part of society again. Either way, if you liked the story, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment if you want to support me. Thank you so much. The next one is titled, Am I Really the Bad Person? I am 16 female and I live in an apartment with my parents. It's a nice place, but there are so many problems. One of them being the walls are practically paper thin, so I've dealt with some pretty loud neighbors. Back in November, we had new neighbors move into the larger apartment next door to us, a couple with their few months old baby. Now, I've tried to be as courteous as possible by making little noise in case the kid is napping. At night I turned the TV down to a reasonable volume, I sing during my afternoon walks, no arguing loudly, etc. But lately, I feel like the neighbors are trying to take advantage of our consideration. About a week ago, my mom was making dinner and she was frying it in the pans and our neighbors came knocking on our door and told her to keep the noise down. She told them she was in the middle of cooking dinner and she would be done soon, but the neighbors said, "It better be soon." The second occurrence happened was when they came knocking on our door because according to them, I was shouting, when in reality, I was responding to my teacher's question. I'm in homeschool. They complained about it and threatened to report us to the office or security. Yesterday was when things really hit the fan. The night before, my mom asked me if I could vacuum while she was away at work, and I told her I would handle it. I started the vacuum cleaner around my lunch break in case there were other neighbors sleeping late, and not even a minute in, I heard the baby starting to cry. I then heard loud banging on my front door, and when I looked through the peephole, it was the mother looking beet red. I opened the door and asked her if she needed anything, and she said, "You need to turn the volume down on that machine of yours." Lady, it's a vacuum, there's no volume button. I tried to explain that to her, but she continued shouting. She said that her husband and her have been nothing but nice to us, and all our family does is being loud. I lost it and said, "We are the ones who have been nice to you." But the moment we go on about our daily lives, you start complaining. You cannot expect the whole world to go quiet because you have a kid, so suck it up and deal with the noise. I shut the door and went back to cleaning. Later on, a few other neighbors stopped by and said they heard what happened and that I was being rude and witchy. When I told my parents, they both said they were on my side and that I was just doing my chores. I don't know, part of me feels guilty and I'm scared that next time they are gonna potentially get us kicked out for multiple noise complaints. So Reddit, am I the butthole here? Comment number 1, not the a-hole. Those around you who are saying that you're in the wrong are being ridiculous. You and the neighbors live in an apartment building with thin walls, noises will be made and heard by all. That is just a fact with living with a bunch of people around you. Your parents are telling you that you're in the right because you are. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, but I would try to get some of this on video. In example, start vacuuming at a reasonable hour and then wait for the neighbor to show up and record the whole thing. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would definitely say that OP is not the a-hole here. I mean, it would be different if OP like vacuums the floor at 3 or 5 AM or something, but it seems that OP is very considerate and the neighbors are just outrageously entitled. Please let me know in the comments what you think about this, and especially whether or not you think that OP is the a-hole or not. The next one is titled, Brother Demands My Inheritance. My 38 male parents died when I was 23 and my little brother Adam, 27 male, was 12. He inherited my parents' money in an account with me as payee until he turned 18, but he asked me to manage the account for him after that. It paid for his needs until he graduated and got a job in 2016, and it's set until 2020. I inherited the house, the family business, and massive debt. I planned to sell the business and the house and move him to live with me, but Adam had a massive meltdown and the therapist I sent him to insisted he needed to be close to friends even though we had no other family there and my entire life was in another country. Against my better judgment, I moved 4,800 kilometers back home, I quit my old job and broke my lease, and tried to maintain a long-distance relationship with my girlfriend at the time, juggling my parents' business and trying to pay for a house with most of the mortgage left all by myself. I started dating Emily, now 34, when Adam was 16, and when he moved for college he gave Emily his blessing to move in with me. We got married when Adam was 21 and we are expecting our first child. Emily helps me run the business which barely survived 2020, the house is paid off and I'm starting to turn a small profit again. In 2020, Adam lost his job and I gave him the rest of his money in his account to support himself and he asked me to handle the bills. Every month I would send him some food money and let him know his updated balance. He does not have enough to pay for the remainder of his lease, October, and I warned him in January that Emily and I cannot afford to support him. I gave him 2 options, which were get a job and pay his rent and I would pay his food bill, or move home and live with us for free while working for the family business. He completely lost it, saying that it was my fault for sacrificing my life for the business and the house and that he should not have to give up his life, since I was supposed to take care of him. I told him I gave up my entire life for him and I struggled to keep the house and the business alive because he wanted me to. So I don't have cash to spare to support him because I have employees and a baby on the way. He insisted I sell the house and business and give him his half, and I reminded him that those were my part of the inheritance, not his, and that I paid most of the mortgage and I kept the business alive and I didn't want to give up everything I worked for. Our grandparents, mom's parents, late 80s I think, are the only living relatives we have. They live in a territory overseas and refused to take Adam or help us because my parents did not leave them anything, so I was stunned when I received an angry phone call from my grandma calling me a greedy person and telling me I should be taking care of my little brother. I reminded her that he is 27 and needs to get a job and take care of himself. And I let her know I offered him both a home and a job with me, and he said no. Update to the story: thank you to everyone who commented on my post and pointed out some things I had been unable to see for myself. A few days after my post was judged, I sat down and had a video call with Adam. I told him that by the time I was his age, I had been raising him for 4 years already, and I had willingly supported him through the global pandemonium. But now the job market was the workers' market and it was time to get a job again. He laughed and asked if I was serious, and I told him I was, that I was removing myself as a payee on his account, period, because he had been an adult for almost 10 years and it was time for him to act like one. I said I did my duty and then some raising him, but I have an actual baby coming that I need to raise. I handed off all financial responsibility to him and wished him the best. He tried to backtrack and accept a position and home here with me, and I told him the offer no longer stood because I couldn't trust him to be a good house guest to my wife and eventually my baby, nor could I trust him to not pull the "my brother owns this business" card that a few pointed out too. I told him he needed to stand on his own 2 feet, not for me but for himself, and that he needed to learn to be independent. There was yelling and crying after that, but when I hung up, I was dead certain it would be the last time I ever heard from my brother again. I heard from my grandparents during that time, but I told them point blank that unless they were offering financial support for a 27-year-old man, that I was done having any conversations with them regarding Adam and his inability to be responsible for himself. To my surprise though, he called me today to tell me he just got hired for a new job that he starts in 2 weeks, broke his lease and moved to a smaller, more affordable apartment and met his new neighbors, a brother and sister who helped move in his boxes and unpack his kitchen. They have already invited him to their next game night with their friends. He is still a little sore that I would not let him have part of our parents' legacy, but he realizes he would not have a new job and new friends if I had not kicked him into gear, and that with the way he acted, he did not deserve it anyway. And yeah, ripe stars, I would say OP definitely did the completely correct thing here and did his brother a big favor, not only by raising him, but also, as he said it, by kicking him into gear. Please let me know what you think about this story, because I'm curious whether you think that OP is the a-hole here or not, but I guess the answer should be obvious. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.